Good evening, everyone. How are you guys doing today? I guess we're live. Let me know if you can hear me and see me. I'm trying to figure out how this all works. All right. Good. This is a new microphone for me, so let me know if it's working. So anyway, welcome everyone to my live. I'm Kevin, but most folks just call me PawPaw. I'm real glad that you're here tonight. We're going to hang out a little bit and talk about tiny homes and answer your questions. And what are you thinking about downsizing or building a shed to a home or just making a simpler life? You're in the right place. So I got a couple fun things lined up for tonight. First of all, I'm going to answer any of your questions you may have and just put them right in the chat, and we'll go from there. And then at some point tonight, I'd love for us to look at Facebook Marketplace, and we're going to try to find some tiny homes or shed conversions that are for sale on Facebook and kind of get an idea of what we can find on there. And we're going to look at those together and go over them and see if we can find anything that's worthwhile. I think it's a great option for some folks. There's a lot of folks that may or may not be able to build their own and do their own shed conversion. So I've actually been able to find some really good deals that don't look too bad at all. So anyway, just feel free to jump in at any time if you have a question. So you can hear me great? Okay, perfect. So where's everybody from? You can feel free to put it in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. How's the video? Am I lagging? I'm just curious. I'm actually out in my my little camper. I have a cargo conversion. I took an enclosed cargo trailer and converted it into a little camper for me and my wife, and it just is a quiet place for me to go. I'm right outside here in the backyard, right next to the house, and I'm picking up my Wi-Fi. So hopefully, I have a good signal for you guys. So just south of Birmingham, Alabama. Okay, you're not too far from my neck of the woods. Then we're in Alabama, but just right outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I'm just down the road from you. Not far at all. Papa Sama? Or just Papa Sam? What Neth is from Los Angeles. Woo! You're all the way on the other side of the country, aren't you? My brother lives in California. So Papa Sam. Okay. I'm just going to call you Papa Sam, or just Sam if you'd like. What Neth? Thank you. I appreciate you. Says, I like your videos. They've been a lot of fun to make. I've really enjoyed them. I sure have. So let me see, while we're waiting for some folks to come on. I'll tell you guys a little bit about my journey. For those of you that haven't heard before, I'm 54 years old, and about 3 or 4 years ago, I started realizing that I was getting really close to being almost at retirement. And I had done what a lot of folks in this country, unfortunately, have done is made terrible mistakes with money and not really followed the advice of folks that are smarter than me, and didn't have a lot of money saved up for retirement. And my wife and I started looking at how we could get ourselves in a better situation before we retired. And I had figured at that point that enough time had gone by that I didn't really have enough time left to make up for the money that I had not put back. And I wasn't going to have enough time to put a large amount of money back. So we started thinking about, well, instead of having more, what if we concentrate on needing less? And that's when we kind of came up with the idea of, well, maybe we just need a small home. We had been living in a mobile home that I had paid cash for, and we got 3 daughters and raised them all up. They're grown now and with kids of their own. And we didn't need a big place. So we decided to just start thinking about getting us a tiny home. We were blessed in the fact that my in-laws actually deeded us an acre and a half of their property here. And it was kind of an early inheritance from my wife. And so I started looking at how I was going to build a house. I work full time, about 50, 60 hours a week. And so it's really hard to find time to really spend the time to build something from scratch. I mean, I have some skills, but I'm not a carpenter by any means. I mean, I've done some framing here and there in my younger years, and done a little bit here and there, but I can throw some nails together and build something, but it's not going to be very pretty. Anyway, and that's when we started thinking about doing the shed. I've always looked at alternative ways of living. I've been interested in that for years. I've thought about everything from I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the cob houses, where pretty much mud, you build it out of mud, or and for a while there I was on a cordwood kick and thought I was build me a cordwood house. And so I've always thought of different ways, alternative ways of building an affordable house. And then when the portable sheds became a thing, I saw more and more people were buying these sheds and putting them on their property and finishing them out on the inside like a little tiny house. And so that's what we did. 2000, and I guess it was about 18 or 19, found a nice big. It was actually the biggest model that they made at our shed company. It's a 16 by 52, and I found it for $13,000, which was a steal even then. It had been on the lot for about 6 months, mainly because it was so big. It was bigger than most people wanted in their backyard, and it didn't have any windows in it to speak of, except for like the 2 little tiny windows up front by the door. But there was no windows all the way around the other 3 sides of the building, which was perfect for me because I wanted to put my own windows in, and I wanted to put them where I wanted them, and I wanted to put nice insulated double pane windows in. So anyway, long story short, we got the building for a good deal. I did the rent to own option that they give you in these little shed lots. I'm not ashamed to admit I took advantage of that. We had credit enough that I could have went and borrowed the money to build a house, but I just did not want to get into a 30-year mortgage. I didn't want to be 70 something, 80 something years old, pushing 80 and still paying on a house. And that just wasn't how I wanted to spend our money in our later years. So I took the rent to own. We doubled down and paid that off as quick as we can, because I'll be honest with you, the rent to own options, they end up costing you a lot of interest. So I paid it off as quick as I could. And now it's all paid for, free and clear. And like I said, thanks to the blessing of my in-laws gifting us the land, it's paid for. So now I can concentrate on my last years working. I can just pile that money. We're trying to just pile that money into retirement accounts, and hopefully have a little bit of a leeway when the time comes. Although I guess you never have enough money. But anyway, so I'm sorry. Let me get to the chat here. I'm running my mouth, but I don't know how many of you folks have heard my story. I've mentioned them in some of my videos, but it's always good to go back and tell people where you're coming from. So, yep, that's true. Even people, what Neth? I hope I'm saying that right. It's not necessarily saving right, because a lot of people did save right, didn't they? And they still lost their money in the stock market when things have a downturn. I know a lot of folks lost money in 2008. There's times when you can have to start all over again, even if you've done everything the right way. But sorry about the commercials. Someone was complaining about the YouTube commercials. I'm not sure exactly how to turn those off. I guess I should turn those off for a live, but I'm not sure exactly. You guys just have to bear with me. I'm still learning this YouTube thing and the technology. But Papa Sam asked, "Do you have a storm shelter?" We do not. My in-laws have one across the street. I mean, they're literally just across the street. Of course, we're in a rural area, and there's a big piece of property. They're probably, I'd say, maybe 300 yards from my house is a storm shelter. My father-in-law has a family friend, an old buddy that has a company that builds these huge parking garages, the big commercial parking garages. And what he did was he was kind enough to come in for us, and they took an excavator and dug out in the side of the hill, and he brought a crew in, and all of his framing, all of his forms that they would use to build these concrete walls when they built these parking garages. And so what they did was they built us a 12 by 12 room that is one solid pour, floor, walls, ceiling. It's all tied in with rebar into one solid pour that's 6 inches thick, and it's got a big old heavy duty metal door. So it's like Fort Knox over there. But that being said, we have tornadoes come through here all the time, at least tornado warnings, and the alarm will go off. We have a siren that's just right across the river from my house, and you can hear it laying in my bed at night. If it goes off, you can hear it, say, "Seek shelter, tornado." And I'll be honest with y'all, I don't get out of the bed. I just roll over and go to sleep and leave it to the good Lord. So I figure if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. Now, that being said, I haven't lived through a tornado coming right at my house, so I might change my tone if that was to happen. But yes, there is a tornado storm shelter straight across the road there. So, living with less, yep. So how expensive is it to heat and cool your home? So our home is we'll say it's 800 square feet because it's 16 by 52. And if you do the math, it's like 830 square feet. But you got to remember that's outside dimensions. And we do have, so this is ours. If you've seen the videos, you've seen ours is like a little cabin style. So it has the front porch that takes away, I don't know, maybe 50, 60, 70 feet, I don't know, of living space. But if you counted the inside actual living square footage is probably more like between 625 and 650. So I usually tell people it's somewhere between 600 and 700 square feet of living space. We only have just a mini split. That's all I have in it for heating and cooling. And it does an excellent job. And our light bill here, of course, we're blessed to be in the Tennessee Valley. If you've ever heard of TVA, we have the Tennessee River runs right by my house. And so we have the dam system and all the hydroelectric dam that produces energy. And so I say all that to say we have pretty affordable electricity in our area. and our electric bill runs somewhere between 100 and 150 a month. But like I said, that's for heating and cooling, and everything. Now, I also want to lower that, even though that a lot of people might think that that's really reasonable, and I guess it is, because I have friends that who's still living in 2 and 3,000 square foot houses, and they're paying $300, $400 a month sometimes for light bills. So I guess ours is pretty low at 100 to 150 usually. But I do have plans to lower that. If you've watched my last video where I talk about upgrades for your tiny home, my idea and a big thing that I'm really interested in is tackling small self-sufficient projects. In other words, I really feel like that it's a good idea to find little projects that you can do that you can handle yourself, that will not only help cut your bills down, but it'll also help give you some security. I'm not a prepper in the strictest sense of the word. When you think of a prepper, I don't have freeze dried food in the closet and that sort of thing. But I think that prepping is a very smart thing to do, even if you think, oh, well, I don't believe in the zombie apocalypse or the end of the world or anything like that. But you also have to realize that prepping is just preparing for any eventuality. And that could be you losing your job, or it could be an illness, something that causes, that affects your income in some way. So I do believe in prepping as far as being prepared. And I think there's some great projects that you can do. I would like to get away from using as much water. We're on county water, and that is $80 a month, roughly, especially in the summer when we have our garden growing, and we do a lot of watering. So I'm planning some projects where I'm going to capture rainwater and do a lot of rainwater for our gardening. I'd also like to eventually get to using rainwater for excuse me, rainwater for our gray water use. In other words, to flush your toilets and maybe even wash your clothes. There's different things you can do with rainwater besides drink it. I don't know about drinking it. We'd have to filter it for that, but excuse me, my throat's getting dry. But some other projects I'd like to do is, I don't know if you've ever heard of a sand point well, and that's where you actually drive a pipe down in the ground, pretty much by hand, and it's a very shallow well. We have a pretty shallow water table here, and so I think I might be able to get away with that, and I'm thinking about trying that. The upside is, well, the downside is you may not be able to hit water, and you may not get water with it, but the upside is you can try it, and I think it's only going to cost me about $200 or $300 to give it a try. So I think that's worth a shot, to have a little well here on my property. And there again, I think that serves two purposes. Every time that you can get away from public utilities, then it's going to save you money, but also just the reliance of being on the grid. If the water was to go down, if the county water went off, then we're stuck, right? No water. So every time you can have a redundant system and it lowers your bills, I think that's a smart thing to try to do. And so that's why I like things like catching rainwater, small solar projects, that sort of thing. So I'm really interested in doing all these different kind of projects that I can do between now and 7 or 8 years from now, when I'm eligible for retirement. So, and when I say retirement, guys, I'm 54. I'll be 55 this year. So in about 7.5 years, I hope to draw early Social Security. I'm not planning on waiting until I'm 70. I'm planning on drawing my Social Security when I hit 62. And I've heard it argued both ways. Some people argue and say that you should wait. Other people say you should take it at 62. Um, to be honest with you, my family history is not the greatest as far as longevity. My parents both died in their early and mid 70s, and my grandparents, were all gone pretty early. And I just don't want to wait till I'm 70 or more years old to get my Social Security to retire and start living my life with a little more time freedom, and then end up kicking the bucket a year after I retire. So anyway, so Papa Sam had an F3 hit my house in Nashville in 1990. Oh goodness, yeah, that's horrible. We have a lot of tornadoes in this area. We sure do. I mean, you hear about Kansas and places like that where Tornado Alley, but it's pretty bad in North Alabama and South Tennessee here. We had one hit. My wife and I actually lived in Alaska for about almost 4 years, and this was back in 2009 to 2013. And I believe it's 2011 was the last horrible tornado outbreak that came through here, and actually a lot of people lost their lives and definitely a lot of property. So I don't mean to make light of it when I joke about me not getting up and going to the storm shelter. It's mostly just I'm just hard headed, but Sharon Pope says, like being raised with earthquakes in Southern California. That's right. Um, I guess there's things to worry about no matter where you live, aren't there? So, does anybody have any questions? I'm gonna look through the chat here, and I apologize. I'm slow, guys. That's because I'm running my jaws and not reading what y'all are saying, but you guys just have to bear with me and help me till I learn how to do this kind of thing. So, Whatneth says, how can we find land from out of state? Which land county allows a converted shed to be on to live in? So let's talk about that real quick. Obviously, finding land is now, first of all, like I said earlier, we were very blessed that my in-laws gifted us or deeded it, my wife and I, this piece of property. So I don't want to feel like a hypocrite and say, oh, it's easy to find land or anything, because ours was given to us, and we were just blessed enough to be in a part of the country where they let you pretty much do anything you want on your own property. So, but that being said, it's very important that you know what the codes, regulations, the rules are for your area. There's a lot of misconception about building codes and that sort of thing. So, first of all, let me tell you, there is no one national building code that there's not like a federal law or an all-encompassing building code that blankets the country. That's not how it works. There are several organizations that put out building codes that are kind of universally accepted across our country or across the world even. I can't think of him right now. It's like IBC, International Building Code, or something like that. And don't make fun of me if I get them wrong, but I think there's also one like IRC or something, something about residential code, International Residential Code, something like that. Anyway, these are codes that are adopted by local and state organizations, and each state, each area, each county, they can all choose whether or not they enforce and adopt these different codes. That being said, just because it's illegal or against code or whatever you want to word it in one area doesn't mean it's going to be that way in another area. So the best thing that you can do, guys, I'm going to try to share my screen, okay? And If I mess something up, then y'all just bear with me and don't shoot me, okay? I'm gonna see if I can find what I'm looking here for. So I'm gonna share my screen. And let me okay. Can somebody let me know if you're seeing that? Can someone let me know if you're seeing what I'm sharing there? I don't know if I got you guys on a pause or not on the chat. There's a way you can set the settings to have a slight pause just in case somebody was to be ugly or say something. Franklin Turner, you're saying yes, you can see that screen. Okay. I'm not sure how this stuff works. I apologize. I'm still learning the technology here, but this should be working for you guys. I hope you're seeing this, and I'll come back and ask you here in just a second. But so this is my particular county. I don't mind telling you guys um, where I live, but so if you look for your particular county, let's see. Oh, let's try this. I think this is where it is. That's our prestigious county commissioners there. Oh, yeah, right here. I'm hoping you guys are seeing this. And you go right here to zoning and building permits. And I click on that. I want you guys to read that. It says Jackson County currently does not have zoning laws, nor do we require building permits. This applies only to areas not located in the jurisdiction of a municipality. So, in other words, if you go into a local city and you're inside the city limits, then you may or may not have a different set of zoning rules and require building permits. But as far as my county itself, I hope this is still showing for you guys. As far as the county itself, I even got a letter right here that I could print out from the let's see, did that come up? I hope so. There we go. So, um, here's a letter that you can print out. They've put it on a nice PDF form here for anybody to grab. That says, to whom it may concern, Jackson County, Alabama is not zoned except in the limits of our municipalities. The county does not require building permits, nor does it issue certificates of occupancy. And it's signed by the chairman of our county commissioner. So let me go back. So there we go. All right. So y'all saw that. So my best advice for you, Neth, is to, well, I would do two things if I was looking for property outside of an area that I was living. What would I do? The first thing I would probably do is go try to find the property. I would try to look for property for sale on places like Zillow and whatever the real estate places. I haven't looked for property or a house to buy for in years and years, but I would go try to find the property, and then once I found some property that may interest me, that looked like something that I could afford, possibly, then I would do a quick research on the county level, and then to before I even went any further, as far as trying to contact the seller of the property, I would probably call the local county courthouse. I would make sure that that property is not in a city limits, that it's in the county. And I would call the county courthouse and I would ask them to speak to someone that's over the zoning or building permits, and I would talk to them. And that's how I would do it. Um, and then now there's obviously um, like you saw there with our county, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's no permits. When I built our house, and I say built, obviously it's a shed conversion. So I did not build the actual structure itself, but I did finish the inside. And Fugly Old Man says, I love that name. That's great. Um, says he found his on Craigslist. Yep. I think Craigslist can be a wonderful uh, resource. Craigslist used to have a really bad reputation for a while there. So just make sure you obviously, do your due diligence and making sure that it's legit, a legit thing. All right, let's go back just a little and see if I missed anything. So Fugly says, I'm off grid, no choice. Closest electric is about 2 miles out. Ooh, no water, sewage, trash, gas. It's a handful. I bet it is. I bet you've had to learn some uh, interesting things really quick, haven't you? You'll need to filter rainwater anyway if you want to use it for anything more than irrigation. Rainwater, some dirty, dirty stuff. Yeah, I've heard that too. That even if you were using it, say to flush your toilet, you'd want to filter it because it just leaves a horrible residue. And Fugly says he's planning on his. I assume he's talking about his Social Security at 63. Yep, I'm not going to wait too long. Good Lord willing, if nothing changes, my plans is 62. So, Catherine Kearns says, I had a house in Houston for 16 years. Harvey tore it up, Hurricane Harvey. I moved to Indianapolis. I bought a 100-year-old house. Oh, I enjoy watching you. Thank you. I enjoy making the videos. It's been a blast. So, you moved to Indianapolis? That is, well, I guess that's not a big change from Houston. The weather's probably a big change, but it's Houston's a big place too now, isn't it? So, bought a 100-year-old house. Is it one of those old like city houses that looks like a mansion? I say it's not a mansion, like a plantation. I guess 100 years ain't a long time though in Indianapolis. Fugly said he has no restrictions where he's at, and that's a big selling point. It is. Mr. Franklin Turner says that he's in agreement with me, and he lives in Costa Rica. Wow. Trying to move back to the USA in a low-cost, practical way. Yep. It's ridiculous how expensive things are nowadays. It's super, super hard to find a house for less, even in our area. And we're out in the middle of nowhere. We're in the country. We're about as country as you can get. And houses here are still $250,000, $300,000. It's just crazy. Okay, I'm going to come on down to, I think I'm near the end here, but Fugly says, for a shed conversion, what base foundation would you recommend? I'm thinking stone and gravel. So I can tell you what I did, and I can tell you what I wouldn't do again. What we did, well, first of all, I've said a couple times so far that my in-laws gifted us or deeded us this property, and there was a mobile home on this property for a short time years ago, and a family friend had come in and built up a pad for that mobile home to sit on from chert that is actually, they got off of our property up on the mountain a little ways. And if you're familiar with chert, it's a great base. And so he just brought in dump truck load after dump truck load of this chert and build it up and just run back and back and forth with his bulldozer and just really packed it down. And now that has been well over 10 years ago. So I say all that to say our building is sitting on a beautiful, strong pad. But what I did was I let them come in with the shed and deliver it, and they just set it up on the blocks that I provided for them. So it's just sitting on block piers, much like you would a mobile home. And that's kind of the way that they set these sheds up. Excuse me. But that being said, if I had to do it again, I would do it differently. Yes, the gravel on the stone and gravel on the base. I understand what you're saying there, but I would put I would put it on block piers again. But here's the thing I would do differently. I would go find the building that I'm going to buy, the actual shed. I would go to the lot. And a matter of fact, the lot that I later found, the lot that I bought our shed from, has a pamphlet that shows you exactly the dimensions of the runners underneath the building. You know, the 4x6s, they put 4x6 notched runners under the building. And ours is 16 foot wide, and we have 4 under ours. So depending on how wide your building is, you know, you may have 2 or 3 or 4 of these runners that go the whole length of the building. So what I would do if it was me and I was doing it all over again, I would find out the measurements of exactly where those runners are underneath your building. I would decide how far, and I wouldn't go over 8 foot spacing. Every 8 foot on each pier, I would put under every 8 foot under each runner, I would put a pier, and I would put a footer, and I would pour a footer, a little foundation, maybe just 2 by 2 foot wide. And I would pour a foundation in every spot that I was going to put my block piers at. Because here's the thing, when they bring your building in, they bring it in on a flatbed truck. Even ours, that is 16 by 52, it came on a semi, a big 18-wheeler type flatbed truck. They dropped it on the road in front of our property. And then under one end, they had 2 little rollers that they sat under the corners. And the other end, they have like a little miniature forklift type thing, but it's a hand operated, sort of like cross between a pallet jack and a forklift. And they grab so one end is on rollers, and the other end they grab with this pallet jack, and they just lift this in, and then they pull it and they rotate it, and they get it where you want it, and they set it down. They're able to jack it up, put your block piers underneath it, then take that forklift for all other, I don't know what it's really called, but then they'll bring it around the other end, lift the other end, put your other piers in. So it would be obviously nice if you could put a post and beam foundation and let them sit the building on top of it. But when you're talking about a building my size or big enough for a house, I don't think they can do that. So I would just have a footer already poured, maybe 2 by 2 foot, and do it a couple of foot deep and have it leveled and have it in just the right place. So when they pull that building in and they jack that up and they set your blocks under there, it's already sitting on a concrete footer. And that's how I would do it if I could do it again. Ours has settled somewhat, not because of the dirt beneath it. The pad, like I said, is really good, strong pad. The ground is not settling, but they didn't do an excellent job of setting the piers to begin with and leveling it. Matter of fact, when they left, I could see daylight between my block and my building on several places, and they neglected to put a couple of piers that they should have. So I'm going all the way back and slowly going back underneath my building and kind of redoing my piers. And if I could go back and do it all over again, or if I could suggest to you guys, I would go ahead and pour a little footer everywhere you're going to put a pier. That would be your ideal situation. So I hope that answered your question. So, and then Watness says, would you recommend having a roof with a large overhang so the walls are protected from the elements? And would you recommend a metal roof? Yes, and yes. I absolutely would. I would definitely recommend metal over shingles, especially. Sorry, guys, it's a little warm in my little camper, but I would definitely recommend metal for my building, just because you're going to have to redo shingles, and I don't want to redo shingles, especially. I mean, I'm 54 now. I don't want to do it 10 years from now when I'm 64, if you know what I mean. And that metal, it comes with like a 25-year, 30-year warranty, something like that. So highly recommend metal. I love metal. I love metal roofs. I love metal walls, metal siding. Although I will caution you that if you're getting a shed and you look at the sheds that have metal siding, look closely because a lot of them just have the studs, the inside framing of the walls with the metal just screwed directly to it. And I do believe that I like the LP Smart siding, the wood siding on the outside better than the metal with no sheathing, wall sheathing behind it, if that makes any sense. But yes, I would try to get as much overhang on the walls as you can. Now, these sheds, when you go to these shed lots and buy a shed, most of them, they're not going to have much overhang, but some of the builders definitely put more overhang than others. And I would go for as much overhang as I could. Excuse me. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate you. So what this says, what'd you use to keep your floors warm? Did you insulate underneath? I did not. But there again, there's a lot of things that I've learned that I wish I'd have done differently. I haven't even underpinned our house. To be honest with you, I have Bisqueen, what with old timers called Bisqueen plastic sheeting. I just went and bought a roll of plastic sheeting. I'm actually on my second one because we've been in this house for a few years now, and I just stapled up plastic sheeting around the bottom. And here's why: I plan on doing underpinning. I really want to, but because of the leveling that I've been doing, and it's been taking me forever, because it's really hard to go underneath the house and fix any type of foundation problem. That's why it's so important to just start and do it right the first time. But excuse me, as long as I still have plans to fix the leveling and the piers underneath, I don't want to add underpinning. That being said, I also am afraid to put insulation, like regular rolled insulation, underneath the floor because just the moisture problem and the mold, all of that concerns me a lot. Now that it does get cold a little bit on our floor. So my thoughts are to leave it open. And now I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a builder. I'm not a construction guy by trade. So, this is just all I can tell you is what I would do or what I am planning to do. And I can give you the reason, my thinking behind it. But please, do your research, talk to people that are smarter than me, because I'm just an old guy on the internet. Okay. So, but my thinking is that I would rather have it open under the bottom, because when I crawl under my house right now, and like I said, it's been sitting here 3 years and we're pretty, we can get pretty rainy in this area and pretty wet. And when I crawl up underneath our house now, it's dry as a bone. There's no mold. There's no nothing. I can look up and see all the floor joists and the floor decking there, and it's all clean. And so that leads me to want to keep it that way. Um, so then I start thinking about, well, how am I going to insulate underneath our house? Because it is cold in the winter. And I think what I'm going to do is I saw a video with a guy who did underpinning on a mobile home, and he used foam board insulation. Like you can go to Lowe's and buy the 4x8 sheets of foam board. He used that and then a wood, and he did like a board and batten over it, and it looked really nice. And so that's kind of what my plans are. My plans are to go in and do a wood structure and do a board and batten type thing with plywood, and then behind it, I'm thinking about putting foam board insulation, and then every so often, like maybe every 10 feet or 15 feet, I'm going to put at least one pretty good size vent into that plywood and that foam board insulation. And you can even get vents, I believe. I'm not 100% positive, but I think you can get them that will open and close depending on the temperature, moisture, that sort of thing. So that's my plans eventually, but I've got to get my flooring, I got to get my foundation all tucked away the way I want it first. So it's just finding time, y'all. Finding time and motivation sometimes. But yeah, you got to worry about the. I don't worry about termites. I'm sure there's plenty of termites here. I have not had any issue with termites anywhere I've lived. I don't know if I've just been blessed, but I personally don't have to worry about them until you do, right? Nothing's a problem until it is. But I can't really speak to termites. I've never paid for any type of spraying for termites, and I've never had any real issue with termites. So, but yes, mold is an issue. It definitely can be an issue. The biggest thing you can do to combat mold, and this is not just under your house, but it's also inside your house and in your walls and everywhere else, is ventilation. Ventilation is your number one thing, right? So, because the moisture. I know that I've heard of a lot of folks that do these shed conversions, and one big problem they have is they're heating with propane. And I love propane. I don't have a problem with it. My wife won't let us have it because she grew up with propane heat and she hates the smell of it. So personally, I don't smell anything except when you turn it on off, But sometimes when it cuts off, it can have a strong smell, or when you first light it. But she does not like propane, so we don't have it. But people that do, you got to remember that propane, it's in the process of burning propane, what it puts off is H2O. It puts off water. So especially if you're in a small place, let's say that you were going to grab one of these tiny little 10 by 20 sheds, and because it's just you, or, and you're going to make something very small, and that's great. All that's great. But when you throw a propane heater in there, along with your body, I mean, human beings expel tremendous amount of moisture just in respiration, breathing in and out. And then on top of that, you add propane burning, which, like I said, is a chemical process. I can't tell you all the science behind it, but I do have researched enough to know that it puts off tremendous amounts of moisture. All that being said, ventilation is the key. I prefer the mini splits. I prefer electric heat and air because of the moisture, because of the ease. It's not the best heat in the world. I'd way rather have a wood stove. Man, ain't nothing better than a good old wood stove heat. That's just a different kind of heat, It just warms your bones. But the mini splits to me are the way to go. And even if you can't do that, then I guess an old window shaker, is the cheapest way to go for your air conditioning. I don't know what I would do for heat if I wasn't using my mini split. But yes, Fugly agrees with me. The condensation from propane is insane. That is true. But yep, a pad. Franklin said with plumbing coming up out of the pad, you'll need to know where your bathroom will be. Yep, absolutely. I now if you do a concrete pad, that'd be great. Problem with concrete pads is, I mean, they're just concrete so expensive now. It's ridiculous. And then I personally don't know much about concrete. I mean, I got one of those little mixers that can handle 2 or 3 bags of concrete at a time, and I could pour. Occasionally I'll do a little project here or there. I've seen my daddy back in the day pour a big pad, and he would do little pieces of it at a time. Like maybe a 4x8 section at a time. He'd do one maybe 4x8 section after work one day, and then the next. But he was I'm half the man he was. He knew how to do everything. I wish I'd have paid more attention when I was young to my daddy. But unfortunately, well, they say wisdom is wasted on old people. By the time you figure out what you should know, it's you've already missed the learning opportunities. Radiant heat. Radiant heat is nice. Yep. Yeah, wood. You put a wood stove in this year. That's nice. Yeah, wood is great. Wood is great. I don't like so much cutting wood anymore. We had a wood stove in our mobile home that we had before we made this shed conversion. We had an older single wide that I'd bought and paid cash for, which there's another affordable housing. I really can't pass that up as a good option for some folks. There's a lot of these rural areas like ours. Now this was years ago. It was 2013. So that, prices have changed somewhat since then, but I found a 14 by 70 mobile home. It was in excellent condition. I mean, the floors were good and sturdy, no softness in the floors anywhere. It was pretty well taken care of, and it was just in really good shape. It was with mobile homes, you have to be careful because there was a lot of eras, eras in mobile home building when they just put out a bunch of crap. And so if you can find a well-built mobile home, it can be a decent way to live. I paid $8,500 for our little mobile home, $8,500, and we lived in it rent free for 6-7 years. So that's not a bad way to go as well. So anyway, if anybody doesn't have any other question right away, I did want to show you guys a couple of listings before I got off of here. And I don't want to keep y'all all night. I didn't realize we've already been on here for 50 minutes almost. Wow. Well, you guys are fun to talk to. So I'm going to pull up let's see. I'm going to pull up my Facebook Marketplace. If you guys want to look real quick. And I'm going to give you an idea of what I've found in our area. So this is within 100 miles of Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is probably one of our closest big towns. And I just typed in tiny home. And there's a lot of these little shed conversions that people are selling. And now you got to be careful. because some of them have been built pretty rough. They look like something I would put together. So I hope y'all can see this. Here's a mini home. New, finished, and furnished. Never lived in. It's only 120 square foot, so it's a little one. It's 10 by 12, I assume. But if you notice there, that big G right there, that means it's a Graceland, I think. And Graceland, from what I've seen, are pretty well put together as far as these little sheds go. But they're only wanting $7,500 for that. And you think, well, that's a lot for a little tiny shed. But what kind of work have they put into it? Let's see. So it's just a one-room little thing. They've got a little bar sink put in. Not very good pictures. They got a window shaker, AC, and a refrigerator. Little on-demand hot water heater. Looks like. And I think that's electric. Oh, and a toilet. And a very small panel. What is that, a 100 amp, if that? So, it's kind of small. Let's see what else we got here. Here's one that's 12 by 24. Inside's finished, 50 amp camper hookup. Oh, that's interesting. Small kitchen sink, bathroom sink, and toilet. Let's see. Well, what they did was they closed in their porch, I bet. See how that doesn't match the other wood? This was a whole front porch across the front here, and they've closed it in. Well, yep, they kind of pieced this one together. There's a hot water heater, and I assume where they were going to put a shower. Yeah, I don't see a shower. Right there would have been a shower, but heck, that's a lot of work on that wood up there. Now here, something like this, you think, well, that's a good deal, because if you go to buy this shed, a 12 by 24, just the shell is probably going to cost you somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000. I would think. So this could be a good deal, or it might not be a good deal. And the reason I say that is you don't know what they did as far as the insulation. I would have to, before I thought about buying this, I would want to know what's behind those walls. I would want to know how they insulated it and how they wired it, because, ooh, that would scare me to death, not knowing who wired it and what it looks like. All right. Y'all can see. Okay. I was just switching back over to see if y'all could see this. It's hard for me to, I have to explain how this live streaming, I'm using a software that allows me to do this, and I'm still learning how to do it. So it's hard for me to, I have to actually be over on the other, like on the Facebook Marketplace screen, and not looking at the actual live streaming screen where the chat's at. So, but I'm learning. I'm slowly learning. I'm trying to find something that just really jumps out at me. Now look at that. That's kind of interesting. There's a tiny home on wheels. A THOW, thou, they're calling it now. That's the new terminology. Tiny home on wheels. But, which personally, I'm not interested in anything on wheels. If I was going to do something on wheels, I'd just get me an RV. Because can you imagine trying to pull something like that down the road and go somewhere? I mean, it's not like you're going to be going RVing, on vacation and pull that big old thing. That'd be a mess. I guess it would be good if you wanted to change and go move to a different part of the country or something. But heck, if you were on a shed, you could probably get it moved as well. I don't know how much it would cost. So this is $7,900. Let's see what they've done here. Oh, they haven't done much of anything. This is pretty much what a shed shell looks like on the inside, but it's on a trailer. So that's actually not a bad deal if you were wanting that kind of tiny home, one on wheels. I mean, heck, he's probably got $4,000 or $5,000 in that trailer. So, and looks like he kind of knew, or she, I shouldn't say that, he might be a lady, but it kind of looks like they knew what they were doing. Look at that soffit up there. Man, that's pretty good stuff there. That's good ventilation if you got that soffit. There's your overhang you want. So, yeah, that's not bad at all if you want a tiny home on wheels. Let's see, what else can we find? This is pretty close to my neck of the woods here. And you actually see a lot of these kind of places around here. And they don't have any pictures. Well, that doesn't help. I was trying to find something that would just say for sure, oh man, that's a great deal. Well, there's one right across the river from me. 12 by 28. They've wired it, put floor down, insulated it, and put sheetrock, which personally I don't like sheetrock, but a lot of people do. Problem with sheetrock, if you was to go to, and you're going to have to move this because obviously the land don't go with it, and ain't no telling what that sheetrock's going to look like by the time you get it to your property. But hey, looks like they might have knew what they were doing with the sheetrock. That's an interesting layout. Very minimalism. I don't like their finished job on the metal there. I mean, I can spot an amateur from a mile away because I am one. And you can ask my wife, that looks like how I would put up metal. And she'd fuss about me. She still fusses about stuff I've done. But bless her heart, she stick with me. We've been together almost 27 years, and I come up with crazy ideas, and she goes along with it. But that's actually not a bad deal there, guys. I mean, like I said, there again, I would want to know exactly what's underneath that metal, what kind of insulation they did. But do you see where you could actually, I mean, I've seen some like this that were close to this price, and they already had like a mini split with them. They had the electricity run throughout, and to be honest with you, that's a great deal if you find something like that. I was trying to find that one. I had one really good one in here, and I guess I've lost it. Well, this is a pretty one. Of course, they want 39,000, but I mean 39,000 still is not horrible. Looks like it's quality. 12 by 24, fully furnished. Wow, It even comes with the furniture and delivery. Okay, let's look at that. 39,000 is a lot of money, but not really. I mean, ours is huge. Okay, ours is 16 by 52, but I bet we've got 35,000 in ours, and I did every bit of it myself. Mm. The only downfall to that one right there, y'all, for us, look at that loft. I would not want to climb that ladder every evening, and then heaven forbid you had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. But they did a good job. It's pretty. Oh, yep, nice. Nice little bathroom. Hmm. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys some of those. I think the point is you can find some good ones online. You just really have to look around. And of course, that's just me looking in our area. I don't know, what it would be like in other parts of the country. So to go back to what Whatneth asked earlier is I would find what area I was thinking about looking in, then I would start finding property because without a place to put it, you're kind of stuck, right? And then I would go from there and try to decide. I think property is number one in my mind. I think even more, even though my channel is a lot about shed conversion and affordable housing, but really, I think it all starts the first step with a piece of property. Unless you're going to do rent something, unless you're going to do something like RV, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I think that's an excellent lifestyle if it's for you. Me personally, me and my wife, I don't think I could get her to go and live in an RV full time, not because it's small or any of that, but that means we'd have to leave our garden and our grandbabies. And, she wouldn't go for either one of those, and neither would I, to be honest with you. I like the idea of traveling around and enjoying an RV, but I couldn't do it full time, I don't think. But you never know. You never know what the future holds. So that being said, if you wanted a home base and you wanted your own little hole in the world, I would probably start with a piece of property. I would find something I can afford, and then I would go and decide what can you do in that area and what would be the best for my situation, whether it be put a camper on it, whether it be put a shed and convert it, or a mobile home. There's all these different options, but I'd probably start with the property. Fugly said the solution is simple. Either work to accumulate. There we go. Hey guys, I just figured that out. Sorry. I just figured out how to put comments up on the screen. Oh, I'm sorry. I told you all it would take me a while to figure this stuff out. How simple was that? Just push a button and there it went. But anyway, Fugly said the solution is simple. Either work to accumulate or live with less and become more free. Living a more self-sustaining way of life can't be beat. Absolutely. I agree. My motto is not have more, but need less. That's my whole model. Just need less. Folks said the problem I still deal with is all the research for every detail. You get into decision coma. That's right. What do they call it? Analysis paralysis. Yep. You What said, got it. Land first. I know for sure not North Dakota. That would be tough. I don't know that I would want anywhere up north. I mean, it's beautiful. Like I said, me and my wife lived in Alaska for 4 years. Um, and it can be beautiful up north and in cold climates, but I need a garden and I need more moderate weather because I like to be outside. And especially if you're going to be in a small place, a small house, a tiny house, an RV, anything small, you need to be able to get outside. And that that what it that's makes my life worthwhile is being outside doing things. Yeah, Tennessee is gorgeous. So, just a word of caution for Tennessee. I love Tennessee. It's my neighbor. I am about 3 miles from the Tennessee line, and I love Tennessee. But you need to do a little research, a little deeper research if you were thinking about Tennessee as far as a tiny home or building a shed conversion. Because I've heard some things about, and I haven't researched it myself extensively. I did look and try to find something on a state level about shed conversions, but I wasn't able to find anything definitive, and I didn't go too deep because I'm not planning on moving to Tennessee. But a lot of these states do have state level regulations that you have to watch out for. And if you do find something on a state level, like on the website, be sure that it's not talking about. And the reason I say this is because Alabama has some things that it can be construed wrong, and you could think they're talking about you're not able to build something unless you build it to certain building codes. But when you really research it, what they're saying is you can't build anything for the state, not in the state, but for the state. In other words, if you are a contractor and you're trying to bid on building something for the state of Alabama, you have to go by building codes. And I mean, duh, you'd kind of know that for sure, right? But so that being said, you just be sure and you research wherever you're planning on settling down at or buying a piece of property, and do it before you buy your property. So many people spend money and buy a property because they find a cheap piece of land and it's off grid and they think, oh, this is great. It's out in the desert. It's here or there. This is going to be perfect. It's just what I want. It's away from people and I should be able to do anything I want. But next thing you know, they buy the property and then they can't do what they want to do because of building codes, because of regulations, because of minimum square footage restrictions. There's all kind of restrictions you have to look at. And then one last thing I'll say about that. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of cross country land. There's a couple of websites, and I'm going to put them in the chat here. I think it's Classic Country Land. Let's see if that comes up with the right thing. But anyway, they offer like very rural type pieces of property, and they also offer kind of I won't say buy here, pay here, but they have owner financing more or less. What they do is they buy these large tracts of property and they subdivide it and they sell it to folks that are looking for rural property. And you can find a lot of their property. Also, here's another one, billyland.com is a good one. You can look there and same thing. They offer pretty affordable land, but you got to be careful because a lot of it is desert property or it's property that's way off the beaten path. What you need to worry about is not only is there restrictions, but you also need to worry about is can you get power there? Can you get water there? Can you even get to the property and without a huge 4-wheel drive or some crazy way to get into your property? And then if you can get to your property, can a shed manufacturer deliver your shed to the property? Or, can you get materials to build your own place? Can you get an RV in there? And then, all that being said, even if all that works out, you also have to look at not only, let's say there's no county building permits or um, zoning laws that prohibit you from doing what you want to do. You have to also look at their subdivision covenants. So a lot of these properties will have, well, if you're buying in this, whatever we'll call it, River Valley subdivision or whatever that they've named their subdivision, it'll have its own covenants within that subdivision that's tied to your deed when you buy this piece of property. And it could be, a lot of times it's just to protect people from somebody moving in and starting a hog farm next door, or some smelly, crazy thing, or a junkyard, or but you still need to read those covenants and make sure that that it allows for, because some of them will sometimes have minimum square footage restrictions where you have to build a house that's at least 1,000 square foot or whatever. So you got to check on all those things as well. So there we go. Hey guys, I have forgotten to ask, if you guys don't mind, will you like this live for me if you haven't already? I think it helps YouTube. Anyway, we're supposed to ask. I guess you're supposed to ask when you do. Yep, Fugly says, also, oh, sorry, did that come up? There we go. Also, any easements that you may have to share. So yeah, what he's talking about at easements is Whatneth is asking what's an easement. So that's the actual get to your property. A lot of times a piece of property will be landlocked. In other words, you have to cross someone else's property to get to your property that you bought. And if there is no legal easement, in other words, someone has written into the deed saying that they are allowing you to build a driveway or access across their property to get to your property. Matter of fact, I saw a piece of property for sale the other day locally here in my neck of the woods that said on it was a very good deal. It was super cheap, and that's why it caught my eye. But when I got to looking closer at it, well, come to find out, one of the reasons it was such a good deal was they said there was no easement. You'd have to get your own. And that's a recipe for disaster right there. That tells me that they probably couldn't get their own easement, right? That maybe their neighbors don't want someone moving in on that property behind their property. And so they're not willing to give an easement, and you're stuck. There you are. So I don't know if you could get it legally, but it would probably be a fight, even if you could. And who wants that, right? So yeah, there's things to look at. Fugly's right. It's you can get into paralysis of the analysis, so to speak. There's so much to think about and research. But listen, everything doesn't have to be done overnight, right? So as long as you're working towards something, you can always start out slow. You could always get you an RV and find you some affordable places to stay in your RV. There's a lot near me that are small, affordable RV lots that, I mean, they charge, some of them are as little as $300 a month. And that comes with power and septic and everything. So you could always do that while you're trying to find your piece of property. There's all kind of ways that you can ease into a better, more minimal lifestyle. All right, guys. Well, does anybody have any other questions? We've been on here for quite a while, and I don't want to keep you all night, but I don't want to miss any questions. Have you guys enjoyed the live? I've only done one other live since I've started on this channel. But I thought about making it a more regular thing, especially if I can help folks in some way. But I really appreciate all you guys spending time with me and dropping by. I know time's precious for all of us, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. I um I would love I'd love to do it weekly. My life is, well, it's just so busy. All of our lives are busy, I guess, but I work I work about 50 hours a week usually. Um I don't know if I've told you guys this before in any of my videos or anything, but I actually work in surgery. I'm a surgical assistant. I work for two orthopedic surgeons and two very busy orthopedic surgeons. They do. I think we did a little over. I was in a little over 1,200 surgical cases last year. So I I work a lot, and on top of that, of course, my wife and um, my grandbabies and my daughters and my son-in-laws, all my whole family. Of course, they take a lot of my time up. Matter of fact, today my all three of my daughters was here, and six of my seven grandbabies were here, and I grilled some steaks um, and we had a big time. And all the grandbabies played on the trampoline, and Pawpaw got his lawnmower out and rode them around. I got one of them zero turns when we built our house here on this property. I got me one of them zero turn mowers, and I won't mow with my grandbabies on there because I've heard too many horror stories of accidents. But I do just crank it up and ride them around the yard, and they enjoy that. But I say all that to say my life's pretty busy. I would love um, I would love to do a weekly live if I could, and I guess that just depends on what you guys think. Yeah, I've been working in surgery for about 20 years. What is a nurse doing street medicine on the streets? What is street medicine? Now that's interesting. I haven't heard of that. Are you working for the state or something? Is it like an indigent care type thing? That's interesting. And my brother is a nurse. Well, he's retired now. He's my older brother. He's 20 years older than me almost. He got his nursing license in 1979, I believe. Um, yeah, I was 9 years old when my brother became a nurse, and like I said, he's retired now. But he was a nurse in California for many years, and he still lives out there. So you're in Los Angeles, but you'd like to move um, somewhere more rural, I guess. All right, guys. Well, you guys have any suggestions for things you would like to hear on a live? Besides things like we went over tonight, we could talk about buildings and different methods for converting sheds. We could also continue to look for things that are the listings for tiny homes that are for sale. I think that's interesting to glance through that. I was thinking about making a video, but Whatna says there's 75,000 homeless in LA County. Wow. That is a huge problem. That is a huge problem. It's very, very sad. Hmm. Working families on the streets. Yeah, I had um, one, one young man who emailed me, and he had saw my YouTube channel, and he was pretty much living in his car in California, and he was asking advice, and man, that just breaks your heart. Hard to hard to know what to tell somebody, you know. So McLoveneer says, let's see, how do you get the plumbing like sewer drains from under the building if it sits on the ground? Well, so my building doesn't sit on the ground. It it you know, I think I was telling you earlier, but it has runners. Most of these sheds have 4x6s running the whole length of the building, and they call them runners or skids. Sometimes you'll hear them called skids. And you can, in fact, I know what you're saying, because a lot of people, when they get a shed to be used just as a shed, they're putting it in their backyard, and they're going to put their lawnmower in it and tools and that sort of thing, and they will just put down gravel, kind of level it out, and they'll sit that shed right on the ground. And you can, because those skids or runners are actually treated lumber, and they're made for ground contact, and you can sit it on the ground. But obviously, like myself, if you were planning on doing a shed, convert it for a home, you have to have a crawl space, right, for your plumbing, unless you're going to do something like a compost toilet, or you're doing some kind of off-grid situation where you don't need sewerage lines. And we have a septic tank, and we have a regular shower, regular flushable toilet, a kitchen sink, and a bathroom sink. That's what of our sewage. That's all the things that go into our sewage system. And so when you have your shed delivered to your property, you provide the blocks, but they will block and level your home or your shed up on piers, and you just buy the concrete blocks. And depending on the size of your building, you're looking at um, somewhere between 50 to 150 blocks, and it just depends how many blocks you need. Depends on how big your building is. So, but yep, we had it blocked up, much like a mobile home would be blocked up on concrete blocks. And so our house is high enough off the ground I can crawl under it pretty easily, almost anywhere. Part of it's a little higher than the other, just based on the slope of the property. But yeah, that's a good question. And let's see. Kenny on board says the county suggested a pier and beam foundation for my tiny cabin conversion, so I'm talking to a general contractor to help me. So when you say tiny cabin conversion, you're actually talking about buying a shed and converting it. Because here's the challenge that I found that you might want to think about. If you are talking about an actual shed conversion, buying a small cabin shed, you need to talk to the company that you're buying it from, and talk to them about them delivering it, because the challenge can be when they deliver that they cannot set the building up on top of a pier and beam foundation. Pier and beam foundation is wonderful. I love it. One of my favorites outside of a slab, a concrete slab. If you're in a good area and it's dry enough, I like a concrete slab. It's just very expensive, and you got to know what you're doing. You got to know how to plumb it, to pre-plumb it, to put the pipes that come through the. So if it was me, and I'm sure you guys have seen my video where I'm still trying to decide how I'm going to build my daughter and grandson's tiny home. I'm still trying to decide whether I'm going to build it DIY from scratch or if I'm going to convert a shed. If I build it from scratch and build it myself, it'll be a pier and beam foundation, which I love. And in my case, I'll put 6x6 treated posts in the ground, and I'll put a 6x6 treated post across those as the beam, and then I'll just build my floor on top of that. So the problem, though, is when they bring the shed in, they have no way of lifting it and setting it up on top. Now, that being said, there's a lot of shed companies that will build your shed or cabin, if you want to call it that, on site. And now if they do that, you could feasibly get them to build it on top of a pier and beam foundation or have a foundation already set. But that's something you want to check on before you go pay a general contractor to build your pier and beam foundation. Make sure if you're buying a building that they can deliver it and set it on top of that foundation. Because in our case, they could not. It had to be on a concrete block foundation. Hello, Illinois. Jamie's in Illinois. All right, guys. Well, I've been on here an hour and a half. So I'm probably going to sign off here in just a moment. Is there any last minute questions or anything anybody needs to know? And if not, I'll see you guys next week. I'll try to do this next week as well. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, my life's so busy, and then trying to do videos as well takes a lot of my time to film and edit videos. And it's all stuff I'm just learning, but it's a whole lot of fun. So let me just put that up there so people can see. No taller than 24 above ground. 2x6 16 plywood walls and floors with spray foam insulation. Okay. So they did say they could put it on top of a foundation as long as it wasn't higher than 24 inches above ground. Okay. Well, that would be great. I mean, man, that'd be the way to go. If you can do that, it'd be awesome. But anyway, guys, I'd appreciate it if you would like the live for me. That would help me out. And if you haven't subscribed to the Ask PawPaw channel, I appreciate you going over and hit that subscribe button too. And that helps me reach more people. And I appreciate all your questions and your participation and you taking time out of your busy life to hang out with me. And I guess there's nothing else to say, but have a good night. I appreciate y'all. And I'll see you next week, maybe. Lord willing. I'll see you guys.